It's
Tuesday.
Hey, everybody. What's up? We are live on YouTube, right on time. Some would debate. It's great to have you here. It's great to be here. If you're listening to this podcast, thank you for downloading that. We say thank you. We mean thank you. It means a lot to us. And we're thankful for this year of this week, I should say, of NFL football, of an incredible last couple of days of football. We did a big YouTube only stream for those of you that only catch us on the podcast on Monday, and it was well attended, John. So we appreciate everybody that hung out for that. Provided that MIDDLEKAUFF is not bedridden Wednesday, we'll do another YouTube stream. But you look, strong.
Yeah,
like an ox.
I just battle through. It's a big week. There's no, even if I'm sick, I'll get right through it. It will not matter. It will not faze me. We will be around every single day because that's what we told people we're going to do, and we're going to keep doing it. Do I feel great? No. Does that matter? Fuck no. Let's roll.
I mean, if Jimmy Garoppolo can play the way he played on Sunday.
I know. You couldn't take snaps under center, and he still won the game. So, yeah. I'm not Trent Williams, right? It's just, even though I give Trent credit, he was, you were watching the TV copy, he was having a good time on the sideline.
He was. Yeah, I got to think the sideline can't play, gets the earbud in and listens to all the play calls is probably a fun day, even if you'd rather be out there.
Yeah. Probably is fun for sure.
I'd love to be that guy, earbud, just listen to all the play calls. At one point, it looked like he turned to one of the coaches and was like, "It's a pass." I'm like, yeah, I know. I've listened every week.
Remember like the peak of Elway's prime as the GM? He'd always be in the booth with the ear thing on. Listen to all the shit.
To me, it'd be one of the best parts of the job. First of all, no one can lie to you. Like, how'd it go today? Oh, it's pretty good. Like, I heard you guys screaming at each other. Don't lie to me.
There's a balance, though. It's a hard work environment when you're
Kyle, I heard Mike McDaniel try to give you a play call suggestion, and you told Mike to shut up. I heard that.
You think there's a reason John Lynch doesn't have one of those in there? It ain't his show.
You think he's just too stressful for him?
No, it's just I don't think it's even an option.
Oh,
you're gonna listen
Kyle
to me
doesn't
call
allow
plays? Well, it's like, why would you listen to me call plays? Like, I don't listen to you do your draft stuff. Like,
Kyle probably tells all the assistants to get off the headset.
Yeah, and it's just him screaming at Jimmy.
Mike McDaniel's got his headset off, just whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I watched Trey a lot on the sideline. He was just kind of, I don't really know what he was doing, but he wasn't doing much. And then whenever the offense was off the field, he'd play catch with Jimmy. Well, kind of. They always have the two guys sitting next. You know how quarterbacks do that? They play catch with each other, but they got two random guys. One's like it looks like a trainer. The other's like a practice squad guy in sweats, and that's who you throw it to, and then you hand it to the quarterback so you don't stub their fingers.
Right.
So it's great. You just throw, and then you get the ball handed to you. You never have to catch.
It is great.
It's the best thing about being an NFL quarterback is you get to play catch, but you actually don't have to catch. You just throw.
Because throwing is the much better part of playing. It's called playing catch, but it should really be called throwing because the catch part's less fun.
But playing catch in baseball is cool because it's easy with your mitt. Playing catch in football with an NFL quarterback with a big arm, it can hurt your hands.
It can hurt your hands playing with a mitt if you're throwing with somebody, better than you, stronger.
But let's go have a catch. It's fun, right? I always like catching it.
Yeah, that's true. Do the Aussies go behind the back.
Omar.
All right, everybody. This is hey, if you're listening to the podcast, go to Apple Podcasts, leave us a review. We'll get back to the mailbag soon, but we appreciate you continuing to leave us reviews. And get us some we need some shave it or save it's back in the new year. So we need somebody, it's incumbent on somebody who is debating whether or not they should shave their head. But let's get back to some shave it or save it's. You can DM us your submissions. We need 3 photos, one from the front, one from the top, maybe one from the back, something from the side, maybe make it 4 photos.
Jed, I had an angle pregame warmups. Like the owners are down there. I mean, the teams, individuals are warming up, but like John Lynch is walking around. You can see Jed. You know how you spot Jed is there's a missing part on the back of his head. See that from a long way away.
Yeah.
But he's had that in his arsenal for a while now.
It's true. It's been the same. It doesn't feel like it's gotten worse.
No,
it feels like it's the
he
same.
still has hair, on the front and on the sides. But even though as a guy, you never lose it on the sides for some weird reason.
That's true. It's rare that you see it.
You just lose it on the top. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you keep it on the sides.
All right. bunch of stuff to get to, but first let's tell you that this show is brought to you in part by MyBookie.ag, promo code HAM and the number one. MyBookie.ag, promo code HAM and the number one, where, we'll talk about who's got the most pressure on him this weekend. The most pressure might be on the Ham lock of the week this week. Last night, Monday night, I should say, I was feeling pretty good about Alabama money line. I had some people, as Georgia was taking over late in the game, tweeted me, Alabama money line. Yes. So, the Ham lock funds were once near $4,000. It's now at $700. That's
don't exactly know how that happened, but it happened. And it's all gone. So we have, I'm all for making one large bet, and I would take the 49ers. +3.
Not money line.
Not money line. Don't hate that either, actually.
+130. I think it's +130 here. I don't hate +3 because this, I think, is a close football game. And I would love just hitting a double here and kind of getting a second life for the postseason.
I agree.
Not that that's a guarantee, but, that would be my first. I think if I said you got to pick Cardinals, or you got to pick the winner in Monday night's game, Cardinals Rams, what would you do?
I wouldn't feel great about it. I couldn't pick. I mean, I would take the Rams, but I don't love the Rams too. -4.
Yeah. You would take the Rams money line -195.
Yeah, see, I refuse to ever make a bet like that.
No, I'm with you. After I look at
the team
that.
I don't trust. I do think the 12.5 in Pittsburgh's just, I don't feel great about that. Like, it'd be hard to take a team -12.5 in a playoff game with a team with a good defense. Yeah, for Tomlin, maybe they fight. I could see that game being like 10-10.5, and the Chiefs end up winning, 28-17 or something.
Yep.
And not
Bucks
covering.
8.5 at home.
Feels like Philly has one just kind of fight in them.
Bills -4 at home.
Don't hate that. Don't hate that at all.
-110. So, MyBookie.ag, promo code HAM and the number one, where you make that deposit. They'll match that deposit dollar for dollar up to $1,000. If you accept the bonus, you have to bet the full amount before you can withdraw funds, or you can decline the bonus. But either way, Ham won. Let them know that we sent you. I guess the only question I would have is, do you go like 650 just to have an extra 50, or will we just reload if we had to?
Yeah, I mean, we just reload.
I had, like a month and a half ago in my head, I was thinking about, boy, by the time we get to the Super Bowl, we'll have like 8 in here. We'll just put it all in the Super Bowl. It'll make for a wild Sunday.
We could just put $500 and have the $200 to bet the following week.
I would say let's do that.
500 money line, 49ers.
+130 instead of +3 -115.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 500, it's actually +135.
Okay.
Would win a 675 if the Niners win this game. So we'd have almost $1,500.
Let's do it.
Did it.
All right.
Come on.
Trey says on the stream, Bengals Raiders under.
I don't like doing unders in playoff game, even though that might make sense. Like, would you like rooting for punts?
49. I did enjoy it in the national championship game on Monday night, but
then they started scoring at the end of the game.
See, this guy says betting as a fan, noobs. Trey, if you've been paying attention all year long, which maybe you haven't been, maybe you have been, and that's your opinion, which is fine. But we have bet on the Niners from time to time when we've liked the value the most.
Well, of the games
rarely.
this weekend, guy, it is by far the smallest spread. The only one that's even close is the Patriots and Bills at 4, and then the Monday night game, and we're not waiting on Monday night to make a bet. It's 4. I mean, you got 12.5, you got 8.5, you got even the Raiders and Bengals have come down a point, but that's almost a touchdown spread at 5.5.
So, yeah, there you go. That's what we're doing. We'll see. We have been known to adjust as the week goes on, but that's what we're doing. Podcast is also brought to you by DraftKings promo code HAM. DraftKings promo code HAM, where right now you can go get, how do I get to my lobby? You can go get in the our DraftKings game, sign up with the code HAM, get in the Haberman and Middlecoff League, and enter our game. We're right now, it's $10 to enter, and top prize is $270. So you can just have a little fun there. That'll be the weekend. All the NFL playoff games are in that game. DraftKings right now, when you sign up with the code HAM, you've got your shot at millions of dollars every round of the NFL playoffs. You can all play for the $1 million top prize every round when you sign up with code HAM, the official daily fantasy partner of the NFL at DraftKings.
Yep, over $1 million for each round of the playoffs. Set up your own DraftKings account if you don't already have one. It's awesome. We highly recommend it because it's sweet. Use the promo code HAM to get a shot of share of millions of dollars every round of the NFL playoffs. Millions of dollars, guy. Millions of dollars every round of the National Football League playoffs.
What do you think of this team? This is not my real lineup. People get mad when you show your real lineup. This is not my real lineup. But this team I put together with just blind fill out. Josh Allen, Leonard Fournette, Singletary, Renfro, Cooper, Devontae Smith, Sternberger. I don't even know if he plays.
I like Sternberger.
Actually ended up with the Niners defense accidentally. This will not be my lineup, so don't get mad at me for showing it.
Well, it didn't have IR next to Leonard Fournette on
so this will not be my lineup. That's a problem. That's the good news, though. They keep you from doing anything dumb. But anyway, that's what a lineup can look like. If you haven't played daily fantasy before, give it a shot at DraftKings. Promo code HAM when you sign up.
Let's do it.
All right. So we've gone through the schedule, and I think looking at the lines really proves the point that we're about to discuss, which is there's the historical value to the Niner-Cowboy game. They have not met in the conference or in the playoffs since 1995. We talked about game the other day. The 95 NFC Championship game is still the fourth most watched conference championship game ever since the merger in the Common Draft era. Ever. Over 56 million people watched it. And obviously those guys were, that was a series of, that was the rivalry in football in the NFC for sure at that time. But this is not quite that. But I think there's still so much left over here that this makes it a premium playoff game. This is what you hope playoff games could be. I love all these matchups this weekend because they are NFL playoff games. But this one's pretty unique. And I think what also makes it unique, not just the history of it, John, but it has the chance to be the game of the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, from a star power standpoint, I mean, there are star players at positions all over the place in this game. And that's a huge part, looking back to the 90s, was they were all pros at all different positions. Like, part of getting a sweet rivalry going at the highest level and then playing again in the playoffs is having Pro Bowl level players, having all pro level players. Now, typically in football, you get a great rivalry with two quarterbacks, Manning versus Brady, Rodgers versus those guys, Roethlisberger versus those guys. This, Jimmy and Dak, to me, what's crazy, you would say that Jimmy's pretty famous, but Dak, I guess, would be the more accomplished player as a thrower. They, to me, are not the headliners of this game, though, because to me, the Cowboys aren't defined by Dak Prescott this season, really, even though he had a good year. And the Niners 100% are not defined by their quarterback. I mean, which makes this game kind of unique, right? When you look at some of these other games, I mean, the Raiders and Bengals, when you think about those two teams, the Bengals, you think of Joe Burrow, right? In the Raiders, hell, you think of Derek Carr right now. The Bills, Josh Allen. Tampa Bay, obviously Tom Brady. In this game, I mean, when I think the 49ers, I think Kyle Shanahan. And when I think Dallas Cowboys, and this is probably different than in the 90s in the peak of the rivalry, like Jerry Jones has become a lot more famous since in his role in the league. But you think Jerry Jones, I mean, you were telling me about his comments with the kicker. I was typing in, some Cowboy stuff into Twitter just to search for some information. And it's Jerry giving quotes about the kicker being inconsistent. That's not, is there another owner this week talking about players on his team?
No. I mean, Silent Stan, that's what the soccer fans of the team that he owns call him, because you never see him.
I've never seen a Stan Kroenke quote in all my years of just following the NFC West.
I mean, maybe you'd hear from Kraft, right? But that's it. That's the only other person that I think might talk. I mean, Mark Davis, I guess, maybe.
Nah, when does Mark Davis ever talk?
I don't know. I just see him sometimes, but I guess it's at league meetings when they've got him by an elevator. Is Mike Brown the owner of the Bengals?
Yeah.
Okay. But he doesn't. I don't feel like he's talked since Hard Knocks.
He's not a talker.
So yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point. I think the way you described it though, in terms of like they're two teams that can't win without their quarterbacks playing well.
Yeah, I'm not. Obviously, it's a sport of football. You need your quarterback, but they are the Cowboys more because they have a passing offense. I mean, they depend on Dak Prescott. The 49ers want Jimmy just to be a role player. Now, there are moments in games like last week where he needs to be more than that, and he's proven that he can. But Jimmy is not, even when he's on, I would say, like the star of the team. The offense, what would he, in terms of talent? Trent Williams, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, right?
Yeah.
Hell, Ayuk.
Yeah. I mean, Deebo finished 5th in the league in receiving yards, even though he's 25th in receptions, which is pretty crazy. I also just think on a basic level, right? Dallas, I saw somebody put this in the chat. Dallas was 6-0 against its division. Which is not a good division.
Well, they won that game. I mean, a couple weeks ago, that Sunday night game, they were up 80-0. Remember that game against the football team?
Yeah, and then they scored 51 against the Eagles on Saturday. Now, I know nobody really cared about that game, but they scored 51 points.
On the road.
I know it was Minshew. They scored 51 points. So, but at 12-5, to me, I wonder with them, and this might be unfair. They're the highest scoring offense in the NFL.
Cowboys?
It's a franchise record. Now, it's hard, right? Everyone's playing an extra game this year, but they scored the most points they've ever scored in Cowboy history.
I do wonder.
And by the way, they had scored the most points before they even played Philly. They'd done it after 16 games.
This is where I would say I wonder if their division played a part because, like you said, the Eagles game, they scored 51 points. Now, the Eagles somewhat threw the game. Not that the Cowboys wouldn't have beat them because they played them earlier and kicked the shit out of them, but 51 points. The 2 weeks before against the football team, 56 points. So in 2 of their last 3 weeks, they scored 56 and 51, and both of them been against the NFC East. Giants football team, 21-27. It just feels like they score a lot of points against. They scored 44 against the Giants. They scored 41 earlier this season against the Eagles. They've racked up some points against the NFC least, as some say.
Yeah. Yeah, even though they did get 2 teams in, I am a little uncomfortable with how, I think it's a function of everybody saying for a month, the Niners are the team you don't want to see if you make the playoffs. Then they made the playoffs. And so, I think the Niners can be a little bit of a popular pick. But I just think that I don't think you're getting that 50-point Dallas offense. And I don't think Dallas would expect to get a 50-point. That's just the playoffs can be different. But I do think it's going to be hard. I think the strength, the idea that the Niners' strength is running the ball, that the Cowboys' defensive weakness is run defense, that the Niners, if we're going to break their defense down into strength and weaknesses, their secondary is their weakness. And that obviously is a strength for Dallas, right? And so I think there are just some things here that play into both teams being able to have some success and making it an exciting game. Now, ideally, if you're the Niners, you don't want to get into a game with, 5 possessions per team per half with Dallas, because to me, I think the more if both quarterbacks have to throw a lot, that favors Dak probably. But it's not like Dak's, I love Dak. He's one of the easiest guys to root for in the league. I think where it hurts though is just, I think both teams can get after the quarterback, and that's where it can get a little weird for both the Niners and the Cowboys, right? What's Trent's health, Micah Parsons, the Niners, one of the more, I don't know if it's underrated, but I think one of the more impressive parts of watching them every week is their ability to just create chaos in the pocket.
Well, I think the thing that makes Micah Parsons so awesome is they got him at pick 12. Looking back, he didn't play his junior year at Penn State, so it was a little out of sight, out of mind, and he still ended up going, without playing, went 12th overall. If he had played, he might go top 5. He might have been the 4th overall pick after the quarterbacks. Because I think what Micah Parsons is what Will Anderson is. And if Will Anderson was draft eligible, do you know that Will Anderson would be easily the #1 overall pick in the draft?
I do know.
And when you watch Will Anderson play, and maybe they're a little different, But I actually think they have a lot of similarities. Like Will Anderson just fucking running everywhere, making tackles, sacks. There was one play in the national championship where he got off the ball and Herbstreit was like, "Did he offsides?" They're like, "No, he just timed it perfectly." And you just watch Micah Parsons, there is like a physicality, a speed, a burst. They put him over center in the guard. He stands up outside. He plays linebacker. He just does it all. That makes this game the more good players that are in a game, the more I'm into. That's why last week was cool. They were just star players in that Rams-Niner game. That's what playoff games are.
It'll look good on
look
TV.
Awesome. It'll look awesome. And I saw that Cowboys were putting out maybe definitely Cowboy fan blogs. Do not sell your tickets. Do not sell your tickets. Because the one thing is the Niners, I would imagine their household income of their fans that are willing to travel might be a little higher, and they're willing to buy some of these tickets. And some of these people, I'm not a season ticket holder, you're not either, but I know people that are, not even just with the night, just in general, and I could understand if you pay, I'm just going to pick an even number, $1,000 for a year season tickets for whatever. That's probably way low, but I'm just pick the number.
Yeah.
And you can get on 80% of it back in one game, and you're like, I couldn't even make it anyway.
Yeah. My neighbor told me he sold his seats, right? I think it was $1,000 for the PSL, each one. So to your point, you can make your PSL and make money in 1 year.
You're saying he gave up his PSLs?
He gave up his seats. And, I think that you're right. I think it happens a lot. I think it'll happen a little bit on Sunday.
That?
Doesn't seem like it.
Kind of a trek to get down there.
Yeah, he's got a young kid now. He's like, I go to the Zoom now more than I go to football games. But, or maybe it was 2000. I don't remember. Whatever it was. But it.
If the team was good, it'd be easy to sell them. But it takes effort.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the younger fans that I've interacted with are underestimating the history of this a little bit. And I was listening to a Cowboy podcast, and one of the guys, the Locked On Cowboy podcast, and one of the guys was like, I don't even think about those old games. Which I get. But I think from a TV product, I think it's going to be, and it should be, a big part of what you see. I think if you've grown up watching any football, you see these two uniforms, famous photos of Emmitt Smith sitting there in the mud, right, head down on the sideline, Dion and Michael Irvin going toe-to-toe, Steve Young and Troy Aikman. I mean,
wasn't there a famous game? Not a famous game because it was a regular season game, and it was Tony Romo played with because Witten played with a spleen.
That's when he threw the walk-off touchdown to the guy that had been on the TV show, wasn't it?
Yeah, that had the dreads. Didn't Tony Romo play hurt against the 49ers at Candlestick? Yeah, and beat them. That might have been the year before Harbaugh got there. It might have been a Singletary year, but it was pretty legendary. Tony Romo shouldn't play in this game. And he did it, and then he hit that guy, that had been in the big break, but for football.
Was it Dion's show? Wasn't that what it was?
Pros versus Joes?
Not Pros versus Joes. It was I thought Dion was part of that show, making the league or so, making the band, but making the league.
I remember the guy was a reality TV guy, but then he got a shot. Maybe they just worked him out. Yeah, it was Harbaugh's first season. You're right.
Yeah. The rib game. What was that guy's name? Anyway,
I mean, his last name was Wilson.
The catch Monday was 40 years since the catch. That was the Cowboys.
But I think part of the problem is because you're saying that people don't. From a broadcast standpoint, they're going to utilize it. I just don't. I mean, think how long ago 1993 was or whatever. I understand young Aikman, and those guys are still really famous, and it's a big deal. It's just a long time ago. Harbaugh was 10 years ago now,
No, it's true, but I think we underestimate
Jesse Hawley.
Someone said it was Michael Irvin's show. I think we underestimate how much history plays into sports, even if it's history we're not totally aware of. I think there's just a pressure that gets created that there's just something there that isn't there for every game. And I think it was there for Niners Cowboys in the Harbaugh era. I think it'll be there forever in the same way it'll be there forever with the Red Sox and the Yankees. It doesn't mean everybody has to remember it. But I think there's just enough people that are aware of it that it kind of there is a passion that comes from that This is like the most basic thing, one of the most basic elements that makes sports great. I mean, it's like one of the things. You don't have to be an SEC fan or be in the SEC country to feel a little extra when two SEC teams play each other in the national championship game.
No, for sure.
So I don't think it's I don't think it's escapable. Whether you remember the Niners Cowboys games of the 90s, of the 80s, of the 70s, or you remember none of it. I don't think I don't think you can escape that element is just in this rivalry.
Well, I was thinking today, do you think Kyle Shanahan would even bring up how much this game means, or is that not something that you even want to talk about stuff back from the 90s? Because why would you just want your players focused on the present?
Yeah, I don't think it means anything necessarily to them in that regard. I'm with you. We're doing this one for Ricky Waters. This is for
fucking Jesse Hawley when he was running down Candlestick. That's bullshit. Jesse
William
Hawley,
Floyd.
He was the winner of Michael Irvin's football reality show, Fourth and Long, and received an invitation to attend Dallas. They did a reality show for an invitation to go to Dallas training camp. Now,
it was specifically a Cowboy show.
Specifically a Cowboy show. This guy had played at the University of North Carolina and had been in training camp with the Bengals. He had played in the Canadian Football League, so it's not like Haberman or MIDDLEKAUFF just showed up there to try to make Dallas Cowboys. Like, it makes sense why this guy won it. But before being on Fourth and Long, he was working as a security guard as well as selling cell phones in North Carolina. And that was in 2009. So he made the team and stayed around for a couple years. Pretty incredible story with Michael Irvin.
Amazing.
I don't think it gets enough. That's the type of story that shouldn't just die as easily as it did.
Kurt Warner got a movie?
I know. Fuck.
So I think the other thing that makes this game potentially so good is the pressure on the Cowboys. Before we get to that, though, real quick, we wanted to mention this. Our friends, John, from the football season, you might remember them. I know everyone else remembers them. From Puesto, reached out to us, and they said, hey, can you tell people that we've got, obviously incredible food. We've got fantastic drinks like the Bang Bang Margarita, the exclusive Levi Stadium Margarita, and we want them to come watch the Niner game at our Santa Clara location on Sunday. And we said, hell yeah, we can tell them. Puesto is fantastic. It's food that we told you about all football season long. Multiple locations in California, including 2 locations in Levi Stadium. Now, the Niners are not at Levi Stadium. So you got to go to Santa Clara to watch the 49er game at Puesto this Sunday.
Yep. They'll be offering exclusive Levi Stadium margaritas in the restaurant for one day in celebration of the game. Obviously, like guys said, the Bang Bang with El Tesoro Blanca tequila, strawberry lime, and Tahim Rim. Yeah, the perfect cocktail to enjoy while cheering on the 49ers. But go there, have some tacos, get yourself a margarita, a little Bang Bang, and enjoy watching the game down in Santa Clara. Let's lock in. Sunday afternoon. Sunday, you get there,
They open at 11 a.m. So
11 a.m.
I would say get there, maybe head in at halftime of the first game, watch the end of that game, get a good seat, get some food. I mean, we were there. They've got drinks. Anything your mind could imagine is there.
Big time.
Plus, they have their own collection of Mexican lagers. That is, I think they're the Negra Dark Lager. Won a huge award at the Great American Beer Festival. We ate there, and it's fantastic. The Adler brothers, Eric and Alex, are huge Niner fans, and I know Lydia's got the whole thing squared away. So, what was your favorite taco? Did you like the shrimp?
I thought I got the short rib.
Oh, the short rib. No, you like the there was the short rib was very good. We went and we ordered a bunch of stuff. The filet mignon, was very good. The short rib was fantastic. The quesadilla taco was the short rib, right? The crispy melted cheese, the braised short rib, the Jalisco salsa, the pickled radish. It goes on and on and on. So tacos, check. Margaritas, check. Great beer, check. Great appetizers, check. Shrimp tacos, fish tacos, the Puesto perfect guacamole with the avocado, cilantro, onion, fresh squeezed lime and orange with the Parmigiano Reggiano on the top. It's fantastic. So go get it. Really Puesto, good. Santa Clara location. I mean, you can go to Concord, you can go to Southern California, but it's not far from Levi's. Santa Clara location. Niner game this Sunday. Game kicks off at what, 130?
130. Yeah.
So my thing would be get in there around, back end of the first game, which is the Bucs-Eagles game. Get a seat, get settled in, get some brew, some appetizer, a margarita, kind of time that first order for kickoff so you're biting it in as Robbie Gould is, kicking it off because Mitch probably won't do the kickoffs.
Mitch might not even be around.
As Debo's kicking it off. No, as one of the Niners return guys is doing this in the end zone, John. Both arms out. It's the best signal. To me, the best play the Niners have on special teams return is.
I agree.
Watch the ball sail over there.
Well, one thing I noticed with the Cowboys, CD Lamb's their punt returner. I'm like, oh my God, how's Hightower going to tackle
That's
this
problematic, John, as the internet likes to say.
Yeah, I don't. CD Lamb punt returner. You never think about punt and kick returners unless you're playing like what's his name that used to play for the Bears. Like it's not, or Deion Sanders. But if you just have like an above average guy, and I see you back there, I'm like, oh, problems. CD Lamb, I could see CD Lamb taking one like 50.
Devin Hester.
Yeah, Devin Hester. Yeah, that was his name. He returned, I think, the first kickoff against Peyton Manning to the house.
He did. Our buddy Cam Worrell was right there with him on his back.
Then I don't think they scored again.
Rex Grossman. Gustavo on the stream says Niners have Debo. Well, does Debo ever get a chance to return it? Or
well, yeah, he doesn't punt return either.
Well, maybe it'd be time. I mean, that's just give me like 8 yards on a punt return, and we can move on. All right. So, do the Cowboys we go through these playoff? Go through the playoff schedule. Do the Cowboys have the most pressure on them in the playoffs? And you look at another team that's been playing. A, they're the underdog. B, they've been playing in these elimination games. It feels like must-win games for a month. The Cowboys have been playing more for, seeding. And I just wonder if you can get up on them particularly early. Are you playing a team that's feeling heat? I mean, Jerry Jones, they won whatever it was, 6 games last year. Do they have pressure on them to advance? And does that come into the psyche of Mike McCarthy's team at all?
I think the Packers and Tampa, the pressure on them just to try to win the Super Bowl is big. Same with Kansas City. The pressure to me to win a playoff game, a home playoff game, is equally as big on Mike McCarthy and the Dallas Cowboys. Like, I don't think that pressure on them to win the Super Bowl. I mean, the Cowboys haven't been past the second round since the mid-'90s. They have not been to the NFC Championship since 1996, whatever their third Super Bowl was. Maybe it was 95. I always get that 95, 96 season. But you know what I mean. They won 92, 93, Niners won 94, 95.
Yeah.
But Mike McCarthy cannot lose the playoff game at home when he just won 12-5. I don't give a shit. If it's like, well, we got the Niners. It's a rough matchup.
To a team that just got in.
Got in because of a fucking overtime interception. Right? And it sucks if you're them because you were looking at playing the Eagles or the Saints, and then all of a sudden you got the Niners. Like, if you could have asked them what teams would you like to play, Eagles, Saints, Niners, if they had to rank the teams they would like, the teams they would not like, the Niners would have been third.
Eagles won? Saints defense, or would you rather just play the Saints offense?
I mean, they beat the Cowboys beat the Saints, I think, 4 or 5 weeks ago, so you probably just go Eagles 1 because you know them really well, and you kick their ass. And then the Saints, and then the Niners clear 3.
Yeah. Not knowing entirely, I'd be really interested to know really the dynamic, not the working relationship with Mike McCarthy and Kellen Moore.
I've read from people that it's really good. I mean,
okay. So I'll assume that it is. And the point I'm making can exist even if they have the best relationship you could possibly have. But when you work for Jerry Jones, I think you're very aware that you can get replaced. Now, Jerry has actually had quite a bit of stability at head coach. It's not like Jerry goes all willy-nilly with his head coaches, so maybe Mike feels comfortable. But I think he's got to be very aware that Jerry is desperately trying to not just win a championship, just advance a few rounds in the playoffs. What is he, almost 90? And, I do think there comes a time when you have to make – because Jerry did it once before with Jason Garrett. You have to kind of evaluate who is the best coach on my staff right now. And if he thinks he's going to lose Kellen Moore to somebody else's head coach offering, does that put Mike McCarthy's job at jeopardy if Mike is not fully delivering what Jerry Jones thinks he should be fully delivering? I'll just put myself in Jerry's shoes. I would be thinking about it. I would be thinking to myself, is my offensive coordinator the better choice for the next 5 years than my head coach? And I wouldn't make that decision if my head coach is taking me to the NFC Championship game, but I would make that decision if I feel like my head coach is not delivering. Say what you want. I mean, I know Dak got hurt last year, so maybe it's a wash. Maybe it's a free year for Mike McCarthy. But it was not a successful year. I mean, there's no way you would call it that. So that would be on my mind if I were Jerry Jones. I don't know if it's on Mike's mind. I don't know if Mike feels good about it.
It happened once upon a time, and I'm not saying Kellen Moore is going to be Sean Payton.
It did.
But remember, Sean Payton was Parcells' offensive coordinator and quarterback coach, and people were like, he was a star. I remember hearing about the guy as like high school. He was a highly thought of guy. And then he went to the Saints, and it was, I think they talked about that in Cowboy land for a long period of time because Parcells was old, right? That was part of it. It was like, Bill is not young. This guy is going to retire soon. And you have the start. You should have just made, even if he just got a fire bill, do whatever. If he could have that to do over, he would have.
Yeah.
You would
think.
That's a good
point. That's a good point. I mean, Jason Garrett took over for Wade Phillips, right? It's gone both ways for him.
Yeah.
So I think that's pressure. Now, is it more pressure than what Cliff Kingsbury feels with his job on the line? Maybe Cliff individually feels more pressure than Mike McCarthy, but you can't convince me the Arizona Cardinals, who used to never go to the playoffs and are now in the playoffs, have more pressure on them than the Dallas Cowboys do.
Yeah. I mean, they had high picks for like 3 straight years. The Cardinals.
Right. Yeah. I think you're right. The Bucs have pressure. The Chiefs have pressure. The Packers have pressure. But it's different than what the Cowboys have.
Yeah.
And I think every team that's playing in the playoffs probably feels some pressure. You know what I mean? Like the Eagles probably. Like it's the playoffs. Like Nick,
sure.
When are you going to get here again? You never know. Nothing's guaranteed. Be where your feet are. But I think Dallas has the most. Like look at it the reverse of it. What would be the biggest story? Which team winning the Super Bowl would be the biggest story of all the teams in the playoffs right now?
Rich Bisaccia.
That would feel like, you're right, that would feel like a major breakthrough. Like, I can't believe that team just won. It's funny, right? Georgia won the national title, and it's like, it was like Georgia, Alabama in the title game. And people are like, here we go, same old story. And Georgia's like, same old story? We haven't won a championship since 1982. What do you mean, same old story?
Yeah.
We haven't won a championship since 1982. So, I think it would feel like a major, major breakthrough for the Raiders. Obviously, the Bengals would be a big deal. But I think we as a football watching nation have been watching the Cowboys for 2 decades now. More, 2.5. Fail to get back to what, people they act like is kind of their birthright. Because they were established as that, like the dominant team in the league. And Jerry's been desperately trying to get back there. So I
think a lot of people have anger is probably the wrong word, but just negative feelings toward the Cowboys because they're talked about ad nauseum. Every channel you turn on about sports when it comes to football, they're just a go-to. They get the Lakers, they get the Yankee treatment, and the difference is like the Lakers have won a lot over the last couple decades. Even the Yankees, I know that they're mad they haven't won a World Series since 2009, but it does feel, guy, like they're on fucking the playoffs all the time, right? The Yankees playing big games. I mean, the Cowboys have not really been that relevant given the hype that they get talked about over the last 20 years. Like the Steelers, the Packers, I mean, these teams win all the time.
Yeah.
Right? The Patriots, now the Chiefs with Andy, when Andy was in Philly. Like the Cowboys, you could argue making the playoffs for them is just a big deal. Like you accomplished something. That's really, they are not the Jimmy Johnson, Barry Switzer Cowboys, where it's just like they're going to be favored in every round trying to win the Super Bowl. I mean, they went 12-5. They have a home game, and they're favored by 3 points. In a weekend where a lot of teams, the good teams, the Chiefs, favored by 12.5. The Bucs favored, that game could be like 9.5 by kickoff, right? Like that's the good.
Right, and to go back to the point, they're the number 1 scoring offense in the league.
Even the Rams, a lot of issues, and the Cardinals, who at one point in time looked like they were going to win like 13 games, they're favored by more points than the Cowboys are against the Niners. That, like you said, it took them a miraculous last 10 minutes of a game to just get into the playoffs. But yet, when you think about it, you're like, yeah, the Niners could easily win this game.
You're right. I mean, it's the Niners feel a little bit like the team that wins and then plays the 1 seed coming off a bye the next week, where you go, well, the 1 seed's got home field, but that other team, maybe they got a little something. They already warmed up. They played a game. The Niners have been playing that. Just they to me are tuned up right now for the postseason. Doesn't mean they're the better team necessarily. It just means they are tuned. They just played in a playoff game on Sunday.
Yeah.
They just dealt with the pain of losing that Tennessee game, and lucky for them, that didn't turn out to be a playoff game. They got another shot. They've been playing in those games with that pressure, and I think there's something to be said for that, for playing in that pressure, and feeling that same type of pressure when you walk out on the field that the other team maybe hasn't felt yet this year. Has Dallas felt that level of pressure at any point this year? I'd say no.
Yeah, and when is this group with Amari? I see he's only been there his second year. Dak. Micah Parsons, like these guys haven't been in this environment. This is a first for them. McCarthy being the head coach of this team. Like the Niners, a lot of their core guys were just involved in a Super Bowl run a year and a half ago or whatever.
Yeah.
To me, it'll be very, very interesting if the game starts against the Cowboys. The Niners have shown they can get down and come back. But when you get up, like they can also feel it. Do the Cowboys have the mettle and the moxie to come back?
Yeah,
I think Dak does as a guy, but sometimes I watch him. My issue with Dak is, like you said, he's one of the easier players in the league to root for. You just like, fuck, I'd want to hang out with the guy. But his football physical attribute as a player are just like, his arm's okay. He just has some passes that you're like, what the hell was that? He has some Jimmy Garoppolo level throws. He really does. And Zeke's a shell of himself. I mean, to me, even the corner who has 11 interceptions, and that you have 11 interceptions on the season, you don't luck into that. But goddamn, he gets smoked. And I saw PFF weeks ago did something during the Arizona game, but the Niners were maybe playing the Texans. I wasn't really focusing on that game, and their whole thing was like, this guy is. Beside the 11 interceptions, he's having a historically poor season covering people. And then you watch that game against the Cardinals. A.J. Green looked like it was 2014.
How's he so
14?
Well, did A.J. Green get really fast again? He's running by him.
A.J. Green's had a good season. A.J. Green was a good sneaky signing. But he smoked Diggs that game. Like their DBs.
More than once.
I don't think their DBs look that good.
No, you could get open down the field on them. The question is, could the Niners hit that pass?
Yeah, and they don't usually. Kyler's much more likely to throw deep. Kyler does throw deep on the run.
And Kyler extends plays against them.
Yeah.
Like the Cardinals are a problem for them, as we talked about on our live.
One thing in that game, and it was really the only game they've lost, over the last month, is their defensive linemen get back there, and they're moving, but Kyler was just Allen Iverson crossovers and some spin moves and just got away. That'll be something like Jimmy ain't doing that.
No, but Jimmy does get rid of the ball. Like that's the key.
Yeah. We just gotta hope it's not to a guy wearing white.
Or when they will get to him that he holds on to it, right?
And not allow it to be put out where they can hit it and fumble.
Well, someone like taps it and like pokes out of his hand. That'll be a coaching point, John. So Trayvon Diggs, 11 picks. Most in the NFL. This surprised me when I looked it up the other day. It's the most interceptions in the NFL since 1981. 11 interceptions. It's not a record, but it's the most in the league since 1981.
It's an incredible accountment.
I think the record's like 14. I think it was Everson Walls.
How's that even
was a
possible?
Cowboy. Night Train Lane, John. 14 interceptions for the Rams in 1952. Lester Hayes. The list of interception all-time names. Lester Hayes and Dan Sandifer. Hayes in 80 for the Raiders. Sandifer in 48 for Washington.
Wasn't Lester Hayes the guy that wore the stickum for the Raiders?
Yes. With like just the big like tape just covered in yellow stickum.
Stickum all over his fucking arms and hands.
Spec Sanders in 1950, Jack Christensen in 53, Don Dole, Fred Glick in 63, Paul Krause in 64, Woodley Lewis and Bob Nussbaumer in 50 and 49.
Do you think a lot of guys in the 50s and 60s were throwing pickable balls?
I mean, they were just throwing basketball passes, you know? They probably caught the ball like this. Emmett Thomas in 74. Sammy Baugh in 1943 at 11 picks. Mel Blount in 75. And Trayvon Diggs in 21.
Well, to me, their best player on defense, and I think is it even a question? He's going to be the defensive rookie of the year.
No, it's not a question.
He didn't just have like one of the better. He had one of the better seasons for just a young player in the league, let alone a rookie. I think we've seen in a long time. Like, holy shit! Remember when Aaron Donald got drafted, and everyone's like, "God damn, had this guy fell to 14?" I think J.J. Watt was kind of like that. If this guy had gone 2 or 3, it might not have been as crazy. Like Nick Bosa was just really good. People were like, yeah, that's why you draft him too. Once you fall out of the top 10, you're like, oh my God, Jerry Jones nailed this one. And he did. But I do think it factors in that he didn't play last year. And that I think we're going to look back. He didn't just randomly go 12. He sat the season out. I have a hard time thinking if that guy played last year that he makes it out of the top 10. I just do. Like, for example, the Miami Dolphins, if they could do it over, would they rather have Micah Parsons or Jalen Waddle? And I know Waddle caught 100 balls or whatever, but, like, you take Micah Parsons.
Yeah.
Would the Atlanta Falcons rather have Kyle Pitts, who's awesome, 1,000-yard season as a tight end, or Micah Parsons? The guy's a pass rusher who's unstoppable.
Well, look at it this way. If the Dolphins had drafted, for whatever reason, it doesn't work this way, but if they had drafted Micah Parsons ahead of Justin Herbert, we would not be clowning them at every time Justin Herbert has a 300-yard game. You'd go, well, you should have gone with the quarterback, but I know it was a different draft. But you got a guy that might, like Micah Parsons, might be the defensive player of the year in the league one day soon.
Yeah, maybe next year.
He's that good, right? One other note on pressure for the Cowboys. Their kicker has missed playoff kicks, has missed 6 extra points this year, which is the most missed extra points in the league. And according to Bones Fossil, I was want to say Bones Jones. Bones Fossil, just some mental stuff. We got it figured out. Just some mental stuff. That's a little scary. So
the Niners can fuck up on special teams too. So
yeah, no, it's a two-way street, John.
If they miss a kick, the Niners will be like, "Hey, we'll raise you a fumbled muff punt."
Hopefully, you give one. If you give one, they give one for the sake of the bet. Matchup to watch. I mean, you mentioned Kyle Shanahan. We've got Kyle Shanahan against Dan Quinn. If you polled 32 GMs, who has the advantage? What do you think the number would be? Mike Sando.
I think it would skew relatively high, close to 32-0, Kyle Shanahan. It's been fun to watch Dan Quinn because he got fired last year, kind of just resurrect his career. He wears a backwards hat. You see him on the one game McCarthy missed with COVID. I forget what was that, Thursday night? Maybe it was a Monday night. Maybe it was Sunday night. I thought it was definitely a primetime game. He's a bundle of energy. But it almost feels like people forgot that as the Falcons fell apart and became a disaster on his watch, it was like, how is your defense so terrible? Aren't you a defensive guy? And he was getting crushed of like, he doesn't know anything for defense. Remember, they had a moment where they took all their position coaches at all the positions, and they just threw them into a hat. And they just picked them out, and guys started coaching different positions. They were that
inspired. That would happen at the NFL level is insane. Because didn't Raheem Morris become like the running backs coach or something?
I thought he went from the wide receiver coach to the defensive coordinator
or
something.
Coordinator.
So, but it was like that's how desperate they were. And Dan, who again, people say he's a nice, high character guy. He's the type of guy you root for. People love that have been around him. But he is not viewed as like until this year when it's like Micah Parsons kicking everyone's ass, as a dynamic defensive scheme guy. So, I mean, that was always the knock on him in Atlanta. So now Kyle, who is just going to have some unique insight because when he worked for him and the way practice works is, now I know, Dan Quinn, I don't think was the defensive coordinator then, but he's on the defensive side of the ball. That Kyle and the defensive coordinator and Dan Quinn, like when they're getting ready for practice, they do practice scripts. Like you just philosophically end up spending a lot of time talking football and knowing what he likes, knowing what he doesn't. He's literally, they'll practice against him for multiple years, right? And his looks and what he wants it to look like. So now that's years ago, but it's not nothing. And Kyle naturally is just, he has an advantage whoever he's playing. We saw it last week when Kyle kind of got rolling in the second half and that stretch where he runs the 10 straight runs. And I have a hard time seeing, because here's the thing, like Dan Quinn is not the head coach, but we know, as we saw last year when Mike Nolan was the defensive coordinator, Mike McCarthy knows nothing about like the defense. You can't even really blame him for the defense. It's like, does he hire the right guy? Like last year, Mike McCarthy's fault in 2020 with the Cowboys was that he hired Mike Nolan.
Right.
Their defense sucked. That's on Mike Nolan because McCarthy has nothing to do with it. But he hired the wrong guy. This year, it looked like he hired a guy that just inspired the group. But you watch him against the Cardinals, is it more of an inspired group play than more like defensive schematics? Because I just see number 11 flying all over the place. Randy Gregory's back, who, battled forever with the marijuana laws in the league. That guy is a very, very athletic individual. And then Lawrence, the Boise State guy, I think had a broken foot or something this year, and he only ended up playing the second half of the year. He's pretty talented too. So they got the defensive rookie of the year and then 2 other pass rushers. If you just have 3 pass rushers, we see it with the Niners. Now, their linebackers with the Niners are better than the Cowboys. Like Van Der Esch is not going to be able to cover Debo or, Elijah Mitchell. That's just not going to be his thing. But if those defensive linemen cause havoc, then you can throw everything else off.
Yeah. I think it's by the way, the one thing in hindsight, I didn't realize at the time, Raheem Morris, I'd forgotten he did the McVay podcast.
Yeah.
With Schrager, him and Tomlin. And he talked about how he went to Atlanta. He became the pass game coordinator, even though he'd been a defensive coach the whole time. And he learned offense. Raheem
Maybe
Morris.
that's what he was, defensive coordinator, and then they moved him to wide receivers.
No. He went there, took this crazy job. It's like he's a defensive coach. He became like an offensive coach for the Falcons and stayed an offensive coach for like 3 or 4 years.
Because someone told him you should do that to help your career out.
And so it's less crazy that he became the defensive coordinator because that's what he is a defensive coach.
Not that crazy at all. It just sounds crazy when they pull it out of a hat.
Yeah, it's
not really pulling it out of a hat. Honestly, that might have been a hyped up story then.
But it was every coach change jobs.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
It is still crazy for your remember when Luis Castillo going from offensive line coach to, was it Luis Castillo?
No, that isn't Luis. Is that the guy that hit the game-winning hit off Mariano Rivera?
No, that's Juan Gonzalez. Luis Castillo was a second baseman though, for like the Marlins.
Are you sure it's not Luis Gonzalez?
Oh, Luis Gonzalez. Yeah. Thank you.
It's Juan Castillo.
Juan Castillo. I got all those names together. I figured it out. Went from O-line coach to DC for Andy in Philly. So it's not quite
bad
that,
move.
but
bad move.
Yeah, bad move. But you make it, John. You throw enough passes, you'll throw a pick now and then. Whatever. You got to take some chances. My point is, I think Kyle's better at what he does than Dan Quinn is at what he does. I think Kyle's one of the best at what he does, right? Just if I'm talking about coordinator matchup. A. B, I think if you have a situation where 2 coordinators know each other, I don't think we can universally say the offensive guy always has the advantage because in theory, the offense always has the first advantage in that they make the first move.
I call the play. Yeah.
I call the play. But
you react.
Some of the best defensive coordinators are the ones that create, you don't even get to make your first move, right? Dick LeBeau, I'm going to make it so overwhelming for you that you don't ever get to dictate terms. I dictate terms to you as a defense, but it's a little harder to dictate terms as a defense than it is for an offense. If all your personnel is equal, right? As in college, where your personnel sometimes isn't equal. So I think Kyle just has the basic advantage there. Then the other coordinator matchup's really interesting too. I mean, Kellen Moore's been calling offense longer than DeMeco Ryans been calling defense, and DeMeco obviously played in the league much longer than Kellen played. But both guys are in a pretty new spot. Like for both of them, it's a pretty massive week, right? Mike McCarthy's been here before. Kyle Shanahan's been here before. Dan Quinn's been here before. DeMeco has never called defense in a playoff game. And Kellen Moore has never called offense in a playoff game, right?
No.
So it's a pretty fascinating matchup.
Do you know that DeMeco Ryan, who when I think about DeMeco Ryans, I think of a young guy, is 4 years older than Kellen Moore? Kellen Moore's 33 years old.
Which is young.
Very
But D'Amico's young. D'Amico, because D'Amico
played in the NFL.
Right?
He played in the NFL a lot longer. D'Amico was 06. Like D'Amico, like Kellen, immediately got into coaching when he was done playing. The difference is D'Amico
Like
had
Richard
an
Sherman.
11-year NFL career. Richard's into coaching now.
Richard tweeted he's looking forward to coaching. I don't think he's on the playoff roster or this week.
Seriously?
He's like, I'll be coaching. I'm excited to coach as much as I can. I think was what I just saw him tweet.
Wow.
Didn't go how I wanted, but I'm grateful for the opportunity to strap it up again. Look forward to continuing this journey with my teammates and coaching my butt off. Thank you all for the support this season. Maybe maybe an injury just got announced with him is how that reads. Right?
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm sorry. I interrupted your point on D'Amico and Kellen.
It's just pretty wild those guys that those two guys are so young coordinators. Like if you just had to bet like $500, will they both get opportunities to be head coaches in their life? Obviously, Kellen's already been getting asked to be interviewed, but
I would bet yes.
Is D'Amico that far away?
I don't think he is. I think it's gone pretty well this year, especially given some of the issues at cornerback created by some of the personnel decisions the Niners made in the offseason. But I think we see some light at the end of the tunnel for that group. And he's going to coach for a coach that wins. Like the Niners are just in the playoff mix, right? What if this is a moment for D'Amico.
You know where Kyle gets lucky is his defensive coordinator. If it was flipped, he would just lose guys faster. Like if he was a defensive coordinator,
yeah,
and his offensive guys, but his defensive coordinator, because Kyle's the offensive guy, like teams don't really hire defensive coordinators to be your head coach.
Well, the Broncos might do it 2 years in a row, but you're right. And that's why you hire offensive coaches, is because if you're worried about your quarterback.
But would Dan Quinn be hired as a head coach if he hadn't previously been a head coach? To me, that makes him pretty valuable. Like if he just bounced around as a defensive coordinator, I don't know if he would interview. Maybe. I think part of his value is like he was a head coach of a team that made a Super Bowl. Guys, they are on their second chance, typically do better. I think that value he brings. I have head coaching experience. I think Todd Bowles falls under that too. And that's where I think it gets hard sometimes, where people talk themselves out of a Brian Daboll, a Kellen Moore. Like, we don't really want to mess with a guy that's inexperienced.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it probably does help him, but I do think – but I also think part of it depends, like, even if he didn't get a job this year, is the Cowboys going to make a playoff run? Are they – how do you perform on big stages? Like the Niners went to the Super Bowl. So I think that's part of it, right, with Robert Saleh. His defense was dominant. Is D'Amico Ryan's defense going to hold the Cowboys to 19 points on Sunday? You know what I mean? Like, it is a moment where D'Amico can – I think we've been following him, and we think it's going well, but it is a moment where he can kind of stamp himself as a candidate just with one game.
Yeah, big time. I mean, because Robert Saleh really kicked ass and took names in that Super Bowl run, right? And then he did. I think he got one interview during that time, and he became a star the following year when their team wasn't winning that many games, right? But remember, he interviewed with everybody. He was what felt like the number one candidate last year, didn't it? I mean, everyone wanted to interview Robert Saleh.
You're right, because didn't he do 5 interviews, turn down 1, or 4 interviews, turn down 1?
He was turning down interviews at that point in time. So,
well, it's kind of
I think both those two guys, a big moment for their careers, right? Hey, remember when D'Amico held the Cowboys at 18 points and the Niners won 30-18? Or hey, remember when Kellen Moore outscored Kyle Shanahan 35-30 and the Cowboys fucking beat the 49ers? Like, this is kind of how did Kyle Shanahan become a dude with Matt Ryan in the Super Bowl run? Won the MVP, and then he just carried it into the playoffs. Just kept scoring points. And he scored points
if you were interviewing Kyle Shanahan after that Super Bowl, would the performance in the Super Bowl have been 100% a negative, 100% a positive, or a percentage of the two? It'd be a percentage of the two, and the percentage would be more impressive that you scored all these points against Bill Belichick than it would be a negative that your team blew the game, right? I think for me, to me, watching that Super Bowl, I know you would rather win the game, but in terms of evaluating Kyle Shanahan, I think it told you more good things about Kyle Shanahan than it did bad things about him.
Agreed. He was
John, we have
3.
Yeah. We have breaking news as we record this podcast on Tuesday. Bum, 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 bum. Have you seen it?
Yes, I did.
The Giants fired Joe Judge. Dun, 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 dun. As Trey on the stream says, I had it first. I think Trey, yep, had it first. It was first reported on our stream by somebody named Trey with a green symbol and a white T, the letter T. So another job is open. The Giants' job is open.
Giants' job is pretty terrible. I mean, that team sucks. They fired 3 coaches in 6 years. Actually 5, because McAdoo and then Shermer went 2, and then this guy went 2. So the Giants are in shambles.
The problem for them is they're trying to convince people they don't fire coaches all the time. But they're constantly firing coaches.
I think it's a hard balance that we don't fire coaches all the time, but when you keep hiring the wrong guys, what are you going to do?
Well, exactly. So do you keep a coach just to prove that you don't fire coaches prematurely? Why do you keep hiring the wrong coach?
Well, because I don't think you know who to hire. Do you think anyone knows who to hire? I think
so the Niners upgraded special teams coach, John? To Joe Judge?
I would hire Joe Judge as my special teams coach, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Where does that job rank? The Giants' job now on the coaching jobs available ranks.
It's the worst job.
It's worse than the Jags' job.
Yeah, because the Jags have Trevor Lawrence.
Could the Panthers trade Matt Rule to the Giants?
Potentially.
So Raiders, technically the Raiders have an interim coach, so I have no problem saying that job's open. Raiders, Broncos, Jags, Dolphins, Bears, Vikings, Giants.
All these jobs are pretty shitty.
Well, that's what happens, right?
But every once in a while the Packers job becomes available.
Every once in a while it does. Yeah.
The Cowboys job 2 years ago became available.
But for the most part, coaches, that's what makes the Jags unique. It's what makes the Raiders unique. It's what might make the Bears unique if you like Justin Fields. Jobs with
Joe Judge got fired after 2 fucking years. He turned out Mississippi State was going to hire him, and then they ended up getting Mike Leach. He was going to be the head coach of Mississippi State. He'd still be at Mississippi State if he had just taken that job. You'd think.
You would think.
But you never know. Belichick had just had 2 guys get fired in 24 hours.
Gettleman retired.
Well, yeah.
Gettleman retired.
Why do they like that guy so much? You notice, they refuse. We're not going to fire Gettleman. We're going to let him retire.
If you like somebody, you like somebody. It's not rational. If you like somebody, you like somebody,
They love Dave Gettleman. The Maras love Dave Gettleman. He means a lot to that family.
So they have picks 5 and 7. Russell Wilson once had them on his list, I think, right? Wasn't he on Russell? Weren't the Giants
wasn't just reported the other day that Russell's not going anywhere?
I don't think he is. You don't really have. There's not if you had the first pick and it was the Trevor Lawrence draft, maybe it'd be a different animal. But I don't. What are you doing at 5 and 7? Could you take that job, use those picks, acquire Jimmy Garoppolo, and
who says no? Hey, we don't need 5 and 7. Just give us 7.
I don't think, to me, Harbaugh, I think the Raiders for Harbaugh, I think the Bears for Harbaugh. Dolphins already said they're not going to take Harbaugh from Michigan.
You want to hear a John Mara quote?
Yes.
I said before the season started that I wanted to feel good about the direction we were headed when we played our last game of the season. Unfortunately, I cannot make that statement. So bye-bye. Bye-bye, Joey. Joe Judge is a disaster. His quotes, someone forwarded me, I guess he dropped an F-bomb in a press conference the last couple weeks, which I'm pro F-bombs, but as a football coach in the NFL, unless you're after a terrible loss, you say F the refs or F that guy. But I think his was more making a point. He went on some rant about how guys that signed with other teams wanted to get back with him, and guys that were impending free agents on his own team were telling him, I don't want to leave. He was just making it up.
I wish I was there, is what he said. Some people were texting him.
It's hard to believe there, Joe.
It's an insane thing to say.
Would you guess Joe Judge is back with the New England Patriots next year?
Well, I mean, historically, Bills guys don't come back.
Josh.
McDaniels did, but I don't. Did Crennel, Weiss, Mangini? Him and Mangini had a falling out over Spygate. I mean, Flores isn't going to have to.
I think that once those guys leave, like I don't want to go back.
Yeah, Patricia did. Good point. Matt Patricia went back. Maybe. I mean,
Feels like he likes that guy for some reason.
The tough part about being a special teams coach, right, is when you're not the head, you don't become the defensive coordinator for somebody. You go back to being a special teams coach, right? Like Jimmy Tomsula wasn't the defensive coordinator who got to go. He went back to coaching D line. So that's probably what he's doing. But maybe he goes back. To me, that job. This is the beauty of the NFL. This is what makes the NFL different than college, right? Is your market doesn't really matter. Now, you could argue, and as you have, and I think you're right, like Jacksonville for Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh's bright lights guy doesn't feel like Jacksonville where he'd go, even though Urban did. But I do think when you look at these jobs, don't you start with organization, you start with quarterback. It's weird because the Jags is a bad job, except you've got one of the best quarterbacks that any of these jobs has. Like I saw a list that had the Vikings as the worst job. I don't buy that. I mean, it's a stable organization. They do have a high standard, but it's earned. They win. Yes, you have Kirk, but life could be worse than having Kirk and Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. You know, like I think
you don't think the New York Giants would want Kirk Cousins?
Would the Vikings would want him? I think if you told the Browns you could just flip flop Kirk Cousins, money's the same. Kirk Cousins and Baker.
Heartbeat. Yeah.
Like I think the Vikings job is better than the Bears job. I think it's better than the Dolphins job. I think it might be better than the Jags job. It's just the question is, what do you think of Trevor Lawrence?
The Jags job in itself is terrible. Trevor Lawrence is, in theory,
I could understand taking it. Yeah. The Broncos, I mean, I don't know what General Patton's rep is, but
good.
Yeah, okay. So I think it's like pretty good. You just need to find a quarterback, which is, it's like, if you just had a jump shot.
Here's what I wonder, though. Some of these places don't have general managers. The Bears, the Giants, the Vikings, Balky's somehow still employed. Are those general managers going to be hired first and they get to hire the coach? Is that how it's going to work?
Yeah, or do you just hire, like to me, if you're the Giants right now, here's what I would do if I were the Giants right now. Although maybe they don't want to do this.
Brian Flores?
Yeah, but they, back-to-back Belichick guys. But
Brian Flores at least has proven he's the head coach. This guy was just I did see the play that he ran that quarterback sneak on 3rd and 9. Even Aaron Rodgers on McAfee was like, I would have quit.
Well, it's like, we're creating some space for your punter. You guys are not you're not trying to tie to make the playoffs here.
What about the formation? It looked like a high school play.
If you want to sneak it on 3rd and 9, sneak it. I mean, that's stupid, but why do you have to tell everybody you're sneaking it with that fucking formation?
You could argue that play was a fireable offense right there. Like that was a fireable offense. Lowest attended Giant game, I think, in the history of the franchise.
Oh my God.
In the modern day. So that shit starts happening. That leads you to, we saw it here with Tomsula. The moment you look up and half the stadium and you got banners flying with the airplanes over your stadium, fire you or sell the team, heads usually roll. And not the owner's heads, because he's not going to sell his cash cow.
Is the Giants' job a bad head coach job but a good GM job?
Their team's got a long way to go, man.
Yeah. I just wonder,
I'd say any GM job in the NFL is a good GM job just because they don't become available.
You got multiple GM jobs. You got somebody brought up Adam Peters on the stream. You got Adam Peters sitting there. It was Turd Ferguson that made the comment. You got Adam Peters sitting there. Like the Niners, the person they're most likely to lose for a coordinator / head coach / GM job, he's probably, of everyone they've got, he's probably the most likely guy that they could lose, right?
Well, I read Mike Sando wrote this thing on potential GM guys. And last year, the cycle, he said 7 GMs were hired. Seems kind of crazy, but maybe that did happen because Denver, Houston, Carolina. Yeah, maybe it was really high.
Does that count?
That all the guys that had gotten hired in last year's cycle had all interviewed previously, like General Patton, Casario, even Fitterer, the guy that Matt Rule ended up hiring. They were names in the cycle. No different than like usually when
Lions.
these names. They had been. You're right. The Lions, the Falcons. There were a lot of GM jobs last year, and his point was like guys like Adam Peters. He's already interviewed for GM jobs. It takes momentum. Unlike as a head coach, like you can just the first time your iron's hot, you can just strike. Right? Like Kyle, boom, hot, hired. But boom, boom. GM, it usually just takes a little time. Unless you just Ballard was a guy that felt like he became a star fast. And he turned down some people. I was watching the Seinfeld episode where he dumps his girlfriend before she dumps him, and then they fall back in love, and then she ends up, dumping him because Elaine was the chick that had laughed at her recital. And so you have to kind of earn your reputation as a viable candidate. And I don't think it's crazy that Adam Peters, there are a lot of GM names, but is like at minimum in a final two of one of these GM jobs if he wants one. Now, I don't know, would he want he's a West Coast guy. Denver and 49ers last two spots, even though he started in New England. But like any human being, I started in Philly. I ended in Philly too. But it was just sometimes you only have options when you're young. But as he's gotten older, like he specifically picks certain places. Like, does he want to go to? You're right. New York has 2 top 10 picks, but it's not viewed as a great draft.
But don't you think sometimes what we view? I think
the Bears have a terrible cap situation. The Vikings, they actually have some talent, but they're also going to need a little, they're going to have some older players you're going to have to get rid of.
Yeah. But don't you think sometimes you look at jobs from the perspective of when you take a job, it's because you think you can succeed at it, right? So,
but sometimes I think in football, people take jobs because it's hard to get jobs.
That's true.
A step, the next level of wherever you're at.
But Adam Peters isn't in that position. Now other people might be, right? Like Kyle Shanahan wasn't in that position, and then he took a job that he told himself he wasn't going to take. But I do think that if by the way, if Peters gets a job, does Ambry Thomas get all the credit? I do think that if you take a job, by and large, you take it either you believe in it or you convince yourself that you believe in it. And I think part of what you have to think is, if I pull this off, who's going to care? Like, if you pull off the Jags, that's cool. If you pull off the Giants, like, there's ego involved in all of this for everybody. If you pull off bringing the Giants back, then it's one of the great. I mean, it's legendary.
Wouldn't you put the Bears too? I mean,
I would absolutely put the Bears in that.
Last time I checked, they had a general manager do the baseball team. That was a pretty big. Now, I understand they hadn't won since 1877 or whatever, but you just saw the power of that town, right? It's a big deal. So I think you'd have to look at both. And the difference between the Bears and the Giants is, what if you like Justin Fields? And I'd say Adam Peters would specifically have a take, right?
Right. Yeah.
Because the amount of time they spent on those guys last year.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, I think it's pretty clear that Adam Peters and the front office were big Trey Lance guys. So does that mean they were not big Justin Fields guys? Or like we had kind of surmised that it was really more Kyle wasn't a big Justin Fields guy? Because I do think the scouting community liked Justin Fields. He was 6'3", he could run and he could throw.
But can't you also be like, if we said Adam Peters, truth serum, yeah, I love Trey Lance a lot more than Justin Fields. But did you like Justin Fields? Yeah, I like Justin Fields too. I mean, can't that be the answer?
Potentially, yeah. But there's a difference. I liked him, but now you're stuck. You're like, he's got a rookie contract. Can you build a playoff team around him? Can you go to the playoffs with him?
Yeah.
Can you go to the
Mike
playoffs
McDaniels coach him up?
Because ultimately, as a GM, it's like, are you going to go to the playoffs? Like, are you going to compete to go to the playoffs? Because if you're not competing to go to the playoffs, you're going to get fired. That's kind of what the NFL is now, right? Can you build a playoff team within a couple years?
Yeah. And wouldn't you look at the NFC East and go, I wouldn't call that division easy. Like, I think Washington's a tough out. Philly clearly is more than a tough out. They're solid.
Philly's got 3 first-round picks this year.
Wow.
Now, they're not great because theirs is a playoff pick. They have the Dolphins, who went 9-8, and they have the Colts, who also went 9-8. But they get 3 picks in the teens.
John, let's tell the people about Sleep Number. Oh, sleepnumber.com/ham. Right now, go there to discover special offers for a limited time at sleepnumber.com/ham or at your local Sleep Number store. Whether you're a firm sleeper like me, like my sleep number is around a 60. Whether you like things a little more pillowy, couch, what am I trying to say? Cloud soft, like MIDDLEKAUFF, is around a 30. Sleep Number's got something for everybody. Sleepnumber.com/ham.
Yep, make sleep your number one goal. I know after we're done with this, I'm going to go to sleep. I can't wait. Quality sleep is important for overall health, performance, and mental well-being. Eating healthy, weight loss, and exercise are also helped with quality sleep. Limit cocktails, guy. Find ways to combat stress. Get outdoors, get some sun, work out, eat smaller meals. Love our friends at Sleep Number.
It's been good the last few nights, and I have to consciously think about this. Portion control at dinner. Like, do I need more? Let me just sit here for 5 minutes, see what my stomach tells me. And my stomach says, no, you can stop now, but get some chips later. That's not the move. Sleepnumber.com/ham. This is the way. You make yourself better at everything else because it's true. You make better decisions, like John said, about the food you eat. You make more patient decisions in your life. And the more I do think it's about, people debate in sports momentum, like, is momentum real? I do think momentum's real in personal decision-making. Like, the more you get yourself to work out, the better decisions you make when it comes to food. Because you just worked out. You don't want to let yourself down.
Yeah.
I find that for me. I don't know. But Sleep Number's here to be sleep is such a major factor in all of this. So, for example, the Sleep Number 360 Smart Bed shows you your ideal schedule, best times for activities like working out, winding down, based on your circadian rhythm. Discover special offers now for a limited time at your local Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com/ham. Sleep Number. Proven quality sleep is life-changing sleep. This goes hand in hand with our friends at BetterHelp. BetterHelp.com/hampod for 10% off online therapy. Check them out at BetterHelp.com/hampod.
Yep, we get annual. The best way to think about therapy, guy, is start this one.
Why don't you? I was gonna say, you want to take this one off? Just rest your throat for a minute.
Yeah, it's like, what am I doing?
Why don't you take a moment, John? This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy. Check them out at BetterHelp.com/ham. 10% off right now for online therapy. The best way to think about therapy is just to think about all the other things you do, whether it's you improve your sleep, you eat better, you maybe limit yourself to 4 cigarettes a day. However you like to dial back, maybe you used to have 8 and 4 is actually improvement. Whatever you do to take care of yourself, right? You go to the gym. Work out the mind. The mind controls everything else. Everything else you do, it starts with your mind. So invest in your mind. You might be invested in your work. You might be invested in the stock market. You might be deep in crypto. All good. Invest in your mind. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers multiple ways to improve yourself, right? And to get the therapy that we all could use. Video, they can do that. Phone, you can do that. You want to do a live chat session because you don't want your camera on and you just want to talk to your therapist via a text or a chat. You can do that. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy. You can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. So here's what you do. You go to betterhelp.com/hampod. That's betterhelp.com/hampod to get 10% off your first month. BetterHelp.com/hampod. BetterHelp.com/hampod. You're back in. We tap MIDDLEKAUFF back in.
And I was a little off. I'm like, what am I doing?
I could tell. I should have said it to you. You needed 30 seconds off. I mean,
I was thrown off.
Well, it's just your voice is killing you right now.
Well,
so I understand.
I want to party
totally
with MIDDLEKAUFF. This is not about party. I'm not hungover or anything. I got sick. Now, it might have led there because I didn't sleep much the Saturday, Sunday stretch. And then whenever I have to, I know you've done this before, when you got to fly out somewhere between 6 and 7 and you're working the night before, you go on 3 or 4 hours sleep. And I was already on probably 5 or 6 hours sleep the night before. And my immune system, when I don't sleep much, especially in the hotel bed, it just goes from being like, like the 49ers defense, which is still, I wouldn't say I have an elite immune system, but it's solid. It can win me games, to go be Brandon Staley, worst defense in the league. And I think my immune system just goes down, and then I get a sore throat, and then I think I got the flu. What are you going to do? But it's not that bad, but it's definitely, I'm way thrown off to how I normally feel. And like you said, with eating, portion control, the one thing, I haven't been that hungry, so I feel like I haven't worked out in like 3 or 4 days, but I feel like I'm losing weight because I haven't really eaten, which is awesome.
It's the upside. I do think a like pre 7 a.m. or like a 7 a.m. flight, because a 7 a.m. flight might mean, rolling out at, even if you're cutting it close, 5:15 out of a hotel bed, right? And so that's rough. I mean, you sound
I had to go 30 minutes from where my hotel was just to get to Burbank, so it's like I didn't want to risk it. I hadn't been there in a while. I didn't know. Now, I could have easily got there at 6:40 and been fine. It was so easy to get through. But yeah, I mean, I knew it, Now, I thought I'd just sleep it off the next day. I didn't realize I would get sick, which sucks.
Yeah. Omarion. You like Stetson Bennett? Did you see Stetson Bennett on Good Morning America?
Incredible.
I mean, he wasn't a great interview right after the game. He's like, I'm speechless. I'm too stupid to find the words. I don't know. Drunk or hungover and sleepless was on Good Morning America. And Strahan knows. Like, Strahan knows exactly what he's going through. It's a good thing Strahan was there on the clip I saw, because he gets it. But he didn't have much, John, but he gave what he could. It was quite an interview. His eyes couldn't stay open. He looked like Uga.
I'll give that little guy something. He threw a touchdown pass on a deep bomb yesterday that I didn't know he had in the bag. It was like a 40-yard, beautiful ball in the air. That's when I knew our bet wasn't going to hit, and we were in major trouble. Did you think he had that throw in the bag?
No, that was right after I tweeted, are we sure JT Daniels is not the better option right now? Which was a stupid tweet.
JT Daniels still on the team?
Yeah, people should be giving him credit for sticking it out. Yeah, he's still on the team. Which,
he got to win a national championship.
Kirby Smart, I think, probably knows his group, and he was right about his quarterback. How about Nakobe Dean? I mean, those dudes were flying all over the place. How about getting your moment to win the national championship, and then somebody hands you the wrong hat with the Alabama logo on it?
What I'd love to know, and I'd love to ask Kirby or maybe like whoever's in charge of the equipment guy, why does their front 7 on defense all wear weird numbers? Why can't one guy just have a normal number? I mean, they had a defensive tackle that wore 88. Their linebackers were like 17, 7. I mean, it was hard to keep up with the numbers, like at least 99. I think Jordan Davis's name.
Yeah.
That's just a D tackle, 99. Like, okay. That's what
he's like. That guy's like 6'8", 6'6", 360.
Guy's fucking huge. Every guy in that game was massive except the 2 quarterbacks who were tiny. I mean,
Stetson Bennett looks like just a helmet on a body. I mean, it was just.
Who do you think's bigger, Stetson Bennett or Bryce Young?
To me, television looks like Bryce Young,
but not that much bigger.
Not that much bigger, but he at least looks. Stetson Bennett looks really small.
I saw someone tweeted last night, is Georgia the first team to have a defense where their linebackers are faster than their cornerbacks? I was like, yeah, I mean, kind of making fun of it. Like, how are there – a couple times Bryce scrambled out where I think he's used to, like, I can buy a little more time, and it was 17 or 7. We're like, or 41. No, you ain't fucking going anywhere. And like, woof. I was like, holy shit.
You know what I think it is? Because I saw somebody tweet, like, why do college players look faster than NFL players? And someone's like, well, it's because the college players, there's some accountants on the field with these college players.
Not in that game, though.
But in that, I think what it is particularly with defensive guys, like they're coached by Nick Saban and Kirby Smart. These guys know what they're supposed to do on every play.
Alabama's defense looked damn good until the end of the game, too.
Yeah. Just sometimes you get, I think, to me, I mean, look, that game, the fact that game was whatever it was, 16-13, like Alabama and Georgia's defenses have relied on offenses scoring a lot of points for a few years now. Like these days of 16-13 football games have been long gone. So the fact that Alabama gave up, what was the final score? 35, whatever they gave up.
Yeah, like 33-18 because the guy got the pick six.
Yeah, like if you told me before the game, Georgia scores 33, I'd be like, okay, Alabama still might win that game. Like the problem wasn't Alabama's defense,
but it was like 19-18 middle of the fourth quarter, and it felt like this is sweet.
I mean, they got a pick six at the end of the game, so that skews it, right? On a desperate throw.
How about the one guy leading the charge with Dean or whoever picked it off? I guess it would have been a DB. And one of Bama's like running backs kind of came over. Did you see the collision as the dude walks in the end zone? I mean, it was just like, are those guys alive?
There were some hits in that game that were just outrageous.
There was a play, a Bama like defensive lineman / outside linebacker tossed a offensive lineman and sacked the quarterback or got like a TFL. And Herbie was like, how about that, true freshman? You're like, what? Who are these humans? Will Anderson, 31, who's the best player in the game, is a true sophomore. True sophomore. Like these guys, all those Georgia guys, even if they're draft eligible, are not like redshirt seniors. You know, it's like they are 20 and 21-year-old true juniors.
Well, Alabama returns the Heisman Trophy winning quarterback and the #1 pick probably in next year's draft, Will Anderson.
If I was Will Anderson's advisor or accountant, and he won't because Alabama's never had a guy opt out in any bowl game for any reason ever. Like that's not the culture of that program. Because I do think Saban's good about like this is all working toward the end goal, like Calipari, like to make you money. Even though the Bama guys don't talk about money, at least publicly. If you're Will Anderson, look at like he's viewed 10 times better than Micah Parsons, and Micah Parsons went 12. So Will Anderson to me is a lock, non-quarterback to be a top 5 pick in 2023. What can he's a multiple-time All-American. He won a natty, lost in another natty. Like what? Now, you get better at anything by doing it, but I do wonder like what? He has a lot of risks next year.
Especially when you look up in the offensive and defensive player rookies of the year in the NFL are going to be guys who didn't play in 2020.
And I tweeted something like you should be able
Penei Sewell didn't play in 2020.
But here's my thing with that. Because I tweeted like Will Anderson, a guy like him should be able to take out some waiver if you're a lock top 10 pick to go. Like the NFL does not want sophomores to declare for the draft. Obviously, legally they can't. But like they wouldn't want any part of that because most guys aren't ready. But sometimes they are. And Kirk Morrison, this was a couple weeks ago. This was during the SEC championship game. Kirk Morrison's like, yeah, you should opt out like the other guys. I'm like, well, the reason those other guys opted out, Micah Parsons and Penei Sewell, would those guys have opted out if COVID never existed? Or they would have played, right?
Yeah, they would have played.
Jamar Chase might have knew something was up.
Jamar Chase might have opted out because, like you told me when we talked about this, the SEC played football.
But Penei Sewell wanted to play, and it came down to the end when he didn't think the Pac-12 was going to play football.
And in the end, they only played, it was better for him. They played 6 games. It didn't matter.
Wasn't the Big Ten the same thing? Remember?
Yeah. So,
but I do think if you're Will Anderson, and
you just want to start making money now. Like, why do I have to wait? Why do I have to opt out and wait a year to play football? Why don't I just I want to start my rookie. I want to get my rookie contract now. Then I hit free agency a year earlier.
By the way, if you're a team, what do you think about a waiver for a non-junior if you're a locked first round pick?
Who votes on that? Who approves that waiver?
I think you'd have to get like a legit poll of all 32 NFL GMs. This guy going to be a first round pick,
right?
Like Will Anderson would be 32-0.
One thing you would need if like you're the GM who's drafting 10, you're like,
I haven't thought this out. I don't know if is that a right way to do it when some guys lie? I don't know.
Well, that's what I was about to say. If you're a GM drafting 10th, but you think your team's going to be worse and you might be able to get Will Anderson the next year, would you vote against it? Because you're not getting him at 10.
But as you see with Joe Judge, Gettleman, and Spielman, you guys lose their jobs now faster than ever.
I'm just saying I'd vote against it if I knew I couldn't get him this year, but maybe I could get him next year.
Yeah, so like Kevin Colbert. He's just going to be voting in something that he's never going to have access to some of these guys, right?
Yeah. So he won't even vote. It'd be like he'd have somebody else do it, right? You would need some panel.
So maybe the panel is the guys drafting in the top 10.
But again, I think those are – if I'm drafting 8, I'm voting no. He's not getting to me.
God, you're fucked up.
I'm just thinking, is that not how? Maybe GMs wouldn't do it that way. I don't know.
You think your team's going to be shittier the following year?
Well, I know we're not good enough. All I know is we're not good enough right now to get him.
So you don't think he should come out?
Oh, I love the idea of
no,
him
I don't.
having
I just mean
ability.
if you're the GM, I think they would. But you're right. Who knows? Maybe
No, I don't know. I'm just saying if I were to nitpick, that might your idea right there might be the best option to have a group of GMs. Maybe it rotates. Maybe it's not ever. Maybe it's as simple as like it's not 32 and it's not the top 10. Just every 2 years it rotates. 10 different guys are on this panel. They don't get to choose. It's like random.
Or even if it's like multiple divisions and then it just rotates through the divisions, right? So it's not based on who's drafted where. It's just
The Senior Bowl coaching staffs?
Will you actually see what Jim Nagy did with the Senior Bowl coaching staff?
No, what'd he do?
I just saw someone took this clip out of an article. Is that the head coaches? So let's just say I don't even know who this year. It'd be the
It's
Lions.
Saleh and Dan Campbell.
That the head coaches are not going to be the guys coaching the team because they're going to try to give the assistant coaches more of an opportunity to be the head coach. They're going to be more roving CEOs,
which actually makes a lot of sense.
What's a good part of it is like to help guys create opportunities. Like your wide receiver coach gets to be the head coach / offensive coordinator.
That's interesting. It makes the game a little more interesting. I think if I'm a head coach, I'm the one making the personnel decisions more than any of my coordinators. So doesn't it make sense for me to be able to watch all of the players to observe a little bit more?
Remember what the Senior Bowl led the 49ers to get?
What?
Deebo Samuel.
Oh, yeah.
Wasn't he on their team when they coached the Senior Bowl? Or he might have been on the opposing team, but I just remember the Senior Bowl, Deebo Samuel was a big reason once they talked about after the draft, their interactions with him and being around the guy. That thing has worked out pretty well.
Maybe you just make the Will Anderson thing as just one person. Just like Mike Mayock. He's in charge of approvals and denials. Just one judge.
Yeah, I guess the more people involved, the more opportunities it has to go one way or the other, where you just want this thing to be black and white.
You can just appeal it. And it's like Will Anderson. Is like there's no, I don't know if there's such thing as a...
He's too easy.
But that's what this is for extreme examples.
What about like a Najee Harris type? So like a fringe.
Yeah, that'd be a little tougher, I think. Because now all of a sudden you've got a lot of guys. Because I think one thing too is, I don't know how much it matters to the NFL. College, the NCAA's they do not want that to start, right? We're like leaving. Now even the Najee Harris, like, wait, everyone, like all these guys are leaving? The 41st pick's leaving early? Because why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you leave early?
Well, any of those Georgia guys that weren't eligible, they're like, well, I want to put my name in, right?
Why 3 years of football in a sport where your career might be D'Amico? Well, how old was he when he retired from the game?
17. He's 37 now, so 33.
That was a really good career.
And he had a devastating Achilles injury, toward the end. That he was never quite the same.
He might be a bad example. He had a fantastic NFL career, right?
I mean, he was a defense. Yeah, I think he was defensive rookie.
I just meant in terms of length, but you're right. He was the defense. He was the rookie of the year, all pro.
Was D'Amico a first round pick? No, he was the second. He was the second pick in the second round, which I kind of like that little sweet spot.
Yeah,
Debo's, the D'Amicos, Derek Carr.
But and teams you don't want too many guys coming in too early, right? You want a third year, physical develop, more time to see a guy. You're about to pay him a lot of money. So I don't think you want too much of that.
I'm not trying to be cynical or negative Nancy here, but I do think part of the reason Nick did that, probably less with Bryce, because, a quarterback, you're not really that worried. And I think he would be like, Bryce, you're never going to get us hit as hard as you just did in that game. I'll promise you. All those guys are going pro. But it was kind of like, Will, I got your back, bro. I got your back.
Yeah.
Because there are going to be some people telling Will Anderson, like, you do not need to play next year.
Look, I think playing for...
I will not be shocked if it comes up in the next couple months.
Boys, you mean the conversation?
Because he can train with them all off season. That'd be one pretty easy one, right? He can just keep lifting with them. It's not like stay at school. Maybe he's got a girlfriend there. But, once like training camp.
I also think Saban meant what he said.
I do too.
Yeah.
I think part of it is Will Anderson was probably one of the better players Nick Saban's ever had. That guy is a force. And his quarterback, he's had multiple first-round quarterbacks the last couple of years, and that kid's better. So you're right. I think he values those two guys. His two best players were fucking dominant. I mean, he's got the number 1 overall player in the draft, if he could, and he had the Heisman Trophy winning quarterback.
Yeah.
I actually think Nick, handles losing. Someone told me this a long time ago. He handles losing a lot better than he handles winning. He was in a great place yesterday. I think he was happy. I think he was very happy for Kirby.
Part of it was Kirby. I think a lot of it was Kirby. He was really happy for Kirby after the game in their handshake.
I think fair and square. They had some injuries and they just got overwhelmed. They lost.
Yep.
I think it was easier for him not to be too mad by the end of the game because they got kind of curb stomped.
No John Mitchie, then Jamison Williams gets hurt, and then in the end, Georgia looked like the better team.
This is why receivers couldn't catch a cold.
It was not the receiver group we're used to seeing from them.
No. Devontae Smith and Jerry Jeudy ain't walking. If Alabama just has a normal wide receiver group, do they win that game?
I think so.
What they're used to having the last couple years?
I thought they left a lot on the table with their receivers. Can we talk about this real quick before Middlecoff goes to the sleep number? And we don't have to spend a lot of time on it. I just want to get it in because there's so much coach opening stuff right now. I think what Rich Bisaccia has done this year is incredible. And I think he deserves a ton of credit. And I think he deserves legitimate consideration to be the Raiders' next head coach. And that's obviously not a unique take. I would be careful. I would always be careful in situations where I'm not going to say you are hiring emotionally, but where you're kind of in the moment, in the glow of your recent love.
Singletary?
To not, yeah. Singletary, really a lot of interim coaches. And sometimes sometimes what happens to you by accident is better than whatever you could manipulate for yourself. And maybe this is one of those situations. But there are some really good coaching candidates out there right now. From Brian Flores to Doug Peterson to Jim Harbaugh potentially for the Raiders. And I would make sure I'm doing my full due diligence, or to whatever extent Mark Davis does, before I hired Rick Bisaccia. I would not just go, this is awesome. We're a hiring coach. He's staying, everybody, and the locker room would love it, and everyone would love it. It'd be a cool moment. But I'd make damn sure he's the best coach you can get, and that he's better for you than Doug Peterson. He's better for you than Brian Flores. He's better for you than whoever else, and that he's better for you than Jim Harbaugh before I do that. And I don't know that there is – I don't know. I'm hard-pressed finding a situation where he could win. Like, if he wins the Super Bowl, I guess you just got to give him the job, right? Yeah. Without doing any due diligence. If he takes you to the AFC Championship game, do you just give him the job? That's what I'm kind of grappling with right now is, if you feel the way I feel, is there anything he can do that you just go, you know what, screw it. I'm just giving it to you. Because there is a point where you go, you know what, maybe I don't fully understand what's happening here. For him to take that team to the AFC Championship game, who cares if I think Jim Harbaugh's the better coach? He just went to the AFC Championship game, and I got to give him the job. That's what I'm struggling with right now if I were in Mark Davis's shoes.
I do think if Jim Harbaugh wants the job, and, I think you've heard some things, he's getting the job. It's like the John Gruden thing. It's just going to happen. And I don't know. I mean, we'll see. I go back and forth. Like, do I believe that's going to happen? I'm kind of rooting for it. I mean, Jim has his defensive coordinator out there. Couldn't he just get the band back together? Jim, Vic Fangio, let's rock and roll.
Yeah. Yep.
I think Mark Davis. I do not expect Mark Davis to keep Rich.
So what would it take?
No, I don't expect him to hire like Kellen Moore or Brian Daboll. Like, in what world would you think that those guys would be better than what you have?
No. To me, if Jim Harbaugh weren't out there,
it's more Flores, Doug Peterson. There are guys that have just been head coaches that I think.
But it's like, if specifically Jim Harbaugh wasn't out there, I think he'd hire Rich Bisaccia. I think I go back to what I always say. The circle is small. He stays in the circle historically. With just organizationally, it's a lot of promoting from within, which can be a very good thing. But John Madden, big Harbaugh fan. Surely him and Mark Davis talked about him over the years. Mark wanted to hire him, maybe, right? The last time Jim was available. Maybe they got down that road. I think if the Raiders had lost this last week and they weren't in the playoffs, I think Jim might be the coach by tomorrow. Charles Woodson, also in the circle. I don't know what I don't. There's probably some Charles Woodson, Jim Harbaugh quotes out there. I don't know what they are, but who is in Mark Davis's circle?
Marcel Reese.
Marcel Reese, yes, he is. I would imagine him and Marcel Reese talked about it the last time around. Probably has some favorable things to say. Ron Wolf.
Ron Wolf still alive?
That's why I said it with a question mark.
Yes, he is.
Okay. So, but surely over the years they've talked about it. I mean, Ron Wolf scouted Jim Harbaugh.
83, Ron Wolf.
Okay. But the circle's not big. So Jim Harbaugh is in Mark Davis's, he's not in the circle, but he is in the atmosphere for Mark.
Do you know what year Ron Wolf started as a scout for the Al Davis and the Oakland Raiders?
1972.
1963.
Woo! Wow.
1963.
What year did Madden retire from playing?
Well, I think after Cal Poly, I think he was an undrafted free agent with the Eagles and like Chuck Ben York or a guy like that, and he got hurt in like training camp and never made it far. So then,
but I just mean
right
like
into coaching. So like 19.
But my question is, did Ron Wolf scout John Madden the player? Is what I'm getting at.
No, Madden graduated Cal Poly 58, so his last year playing would have been like 58, 59.
Okay.
You know you're old if you scouted John Madden the player coming out of Cal Poly.
Yeah, I mean, you said 63?
63, yeah.
So, does that mean like there were some players he liked that like went to war?
Like Vietnam?
Yeah.
Surely, yeah. I'm sure, yeah.
Like, man, he could have been a good player, but
or hey, when this guy gets back, if he makes it back, let's keep an eye on him, see how he's doing.
And I'm not trying to be funny. I just saw someone made the comment in the stream. HR said in '63 Pops went to Nam.
I think enough time has passed that you can make a subtle joke.
It's not even a joke. I mean, I'm just blown away. I mean, that's wild. The amount of football that he's seen.
A lot.
Imagine. I would love to see Ron Wolf when Brandon Staley went for it on 4th and 1 from his own 18-yard line, down by 3 in the third quarter.
I think a lot. What would you imagine the most reaction around the league? I don't think Brandon Staley is well liked with coaches.
So, John, who's the guy who's on the Washington football team? Scott Turner?
Oh, yeah. I saw something on Twitter. He kept changing his profile pic or something.
So somebody DM'd me the other day and was like, you should look into Scott Turner. He changed his
Norv's
Twitter
kid.
photo. Oh, is that his Norv's kid?
I think so, yeah.
He changed his Twitter photo to a Raiders-like shirt. That means Harbaugh was supposed to come because he's Harbaugh's guy. He was at Michigan with Harbaugh.
Scott Turner was?
Yeah. So I go to Scott Turner's Twitter page, and obviously it's changed back. It's football team. But his last tweet was something that was clearly, I thought, anti-Brandon Staley. I don't know if it's still up. Let me see. Are you on his Twitter page right now?
No, I went to his Wikipedia. He spent a year at offensive analyst at Michigan.
Yeah, so here you go. Let me throw this up here. So January 9th, what time did that game? Yeah, there's no question in my mind what Scott Turner was tweeting about here. Scott Turner at 9:18 p.m.
Yeah,
tweeted.
That would have been, yeah.
Look what he tweeted. Guru ball. He's talking shit about Staley right there.
Because he thinks he knows everything.
So my thought, so what I said, what I DM'd the person back was, well, is it possible he changed to a Raiders shirt photo just as like a fuck yeah? Like the Raiders just took down Mr. Guru ball?
Maybe, but he's never coached for the Raiders, just as like a pro or an anti Brandon Staley.
But good point. That would mean he had to Photoshop himself in a Raiders hat. and shirt? Who did that for him?
He's 39 years old. You think he could know how to? I don't know how to Photoshop.
Somebody in the office? One of Harbaugh's guys? Maybe you do. I don't know.
Feels like a lot of work.
Guru ball.
Do you think when they say a Harbaugh guy, 2017 offensive analyst is the only year he's ever been around Jim Harbaugh?
Well, I think their point was he's coming with Jim. He knows him. You're just putting the internet theories together. Put the Raiders thing on, knows Jim. He must be coming with Jim.
That's where people were freaking out.
Yeah.
Because I saw a bunch of people on the internet. I was like, I don't understand. He's just wearing a Raider polo.
Accidentally update? Are you
Raider
like just seeing what it looks like and then you accidentally hit change and someone's like, I'm watching Scott Turner's Twitter page. I just saw it.
Ron Rivera has multiple coaches that are pretty active on Twitter.
Yeah. Anyway, I'd hire Jim too. I still at this point think it's happening. Still got to get by Kansas City, right? Before you get to the Super Bowl. So a lot would have to happen there for Rich. But I think he's earned a legitimate consideration without question. But I would not hire if they lose this week and Jim Harbaugh's available. What happens if they win this week? It's the other thing. Like, are people, coaches start going off the table the longer you have to wait.
I think you got another 10 days. I don't think we'll have a hire for another 10 days.
But what I'm saying is, 10 days is next. So if you win in the first round of the playoffs, people are getting hired during.
But only one franchise is really ready to hire a coach because these other teams don't even have GMs.
That's true.
I think they got a lot. Like, do you think the Minnesota Vikings, Chicago Bears right now know what they want to do? Like, they just kind of try to interview people and figure out as they go. Like, I don't think they know. And this was my thing on, like, if Mark Davis wants to hire Jim Harbaugh, remember how he got in trouble last time with Gruden, the Rooney Rule
do.
thing?
They actually made the Rooney rules a little stronger because of Mark. And Mark said at the time, like, you guys are crazy. Look at my GM. Look at Reggie. I hired Reggie McKenzie. What are you guys talking about? But
do you agree that if you want to hire Jim Harbaugh, you shouldn't have to interview anyone else?
I think if he wants to hire Jim Harbaugh, he's just gonna hire Jim Harbaugh. But I think the league is gonna give him a hard time.
No. Well, he'll do some fake interviews. But think how stupid that is.
Yeah, does anybody want to be fake interviewed? You want the experience.
Well, most teams are not hiring Jim Harbaugh. So you think, well, fuck, if I just get in front, I have a shot, right?
That's
Mike
right.
Tomlin style.
Yeah, right. I did not ask that question properly. Would anybody want a fake interview if everyone knew they were hiring Jim Harbaugh?
No, it's so stupid. Remember last time they interviewed T. Martin, who was a wide receiver coach at the time at USC. It's like, we really have to do
after
this?
The fact. It was after they started getting a little heat they interviewed T, right?
Oh, because the rumors were Gruden was coming.
I thought it kind of happened like as a throw-in late that they interviewed T.
Yeah, I think you're right. So now, what are the rules? You got to interview multiple Rooney Rule candidates?
Yeah, I don't remember how they changed because it's like the rules again are still kind of complicated.
Didn't Mark get fined?
I think maybe you have to. I think one of the rules is you have to interview like a sitting coordinator, maybe because T. Martin was not. What was T. Martin's role? You can't.
Yeah, wide receiver coach USC.
And then I think one of them is you can't interview somebody from your own team and have that count as a Rooney Rule interview.
Which is, I think, a lot of teams did, and it's kind of bullshit over the years. Just
but
take a minority candidate from their own staff, especially. And here's what happens a lot when I fire Joe Judge. Like if I was John Mara and I wanted to cook the books on the Rooney Rule, I would just hire one of his staff members, who's a black guy, and that would count as my Rooney Rule. Which is like, you just fired the head coach. You're gonna fire all these guys, but you just get it out of the way. That's where I think, and to me, that you shouldn't be allowed to do that because I don't think the Giants know who they're going to hire. But my issue is there should be a little like Will Anderson. There should be some waiver if this guy is good enough, right? If Sean Payton gets fired and I'm going to hire him, I don't need to interview anyone else. If I'm going to hire Mike Tomlin, and he's a bad example because he would count under it, but I don't need to interview another soul. Back in the day with Parcells when he was moving to different teams, like if I want to hire Bill Parcells, I don't need to interview anyone else. He's just so stupid in basketball, like the Pat Rileys, the Phil Jacksons, the Rick Carlisles. I think
Brian
with the Dayball's and everything.
To me, sure, it's just like you say to the league. I'm not interview. Like if you hire two people now, if you interview one person, then that's the person you hire. Then nobody says anything. But if you hire, I keep using the wrong word. If you interview more than one person, now you open yourself up to the full process. Maybe something like that. Is that kind of what you're saying?
I'm just saying there should be a level of candidate. The Harbaugh's clearly in. No one else.
But I don't know how you measure that other than did you just hire one person and do no interviews? That's to me how you measure it.
And his name was Jim fucking Harbaugh.
Right. but that's what I'm saying, though. If you did interviews, now, hold on, you're part of this process. But if you just hired somebody, quote unquote, sight unseen, like it's not an interview, you're just hiring the first person you talk to.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. Harbaugh, even Gruden, it didn't work out. I think as we all thought it was going to go. But at the time when they hired him, like, you shouldn't. Why you have to if he wants to hire John Gruden and John Gruden wants the job, like, it's done. There are certain candidates in any world, right, in any industry, where it's like, if this guy wants the job, I'm going to offer him the job. The job's yours.
Yeah.
Happens in other businesses. Like,
at the end of the day, it's a minor. Like, is Mark already once flouted the rule. And then claimed the rule shouldn't apply to him because the Raiders have a long history of diversity.
Kind of agree.
And he had Reggie McKenzie as his GM.
I agree with him in the fact that John Gruden, you shouldn't have to interview anyone else. If John Gruden said, "Yeah,"
I do agree, but I also the idea that like, no, we've done our work before. Like this rule shouldn't apply to us. It's kind of a weird answer.
Maybe if the coach has won a Super Bowl that you're going to hire, Harbaugh wouldn't fall under that. But you don't have to interview anyone else if he wants.
If you can prove you already interviewed him once before, and you almost hired him once before, so
you think Jim Harbaugh's gonna be the next coach of the Raiders?
I kind of do. I do. Yes. If you said make a
pie
chart,
you just think it's like January 20th. It's gonna get announced that Jim Harbaugh's.
Well, where's his Michigan extension, John? That he was leveraging for? Has that been signed yet?
I thought he was under. I mean, technically he's under one, right?
But remember the story. The story comes out. He could be a Raider, and it's like, well, he's just using this to get more money from Michigan. It's like, okay, well, that's been a week. Where's the contract? Has he signed the new contract? If he signs the new contract, he hasn't. There's been no like Harbaugh's negotiating with Michigan. I haven't read that one. Maybe it's out there somewhere. I think he's waiting on the Raiders. I think Mark is telling him just wait.
What's Chip waiting on?
His buyout expires this weekend. It goes to $0. So Jimmy Sexton's not in the discounts, and maybe UCLA wants a slight discount.
Well, so a buyout, you mean if they fired him, they don't have to pay him a penny?
Right.
Even next year, they don't have to pay him?
Well, there's only 1 year left on his contract.
So you just pay him $5 million to go away?
No, you just fire him. There's no buyout.
So you still owe him for the following year?
No.
You owe him nothing.
$0. That's the buyout goes to $0. It was like $12 million. Right now, it's $12 million. He's 9 or 12.
He's just $0. So it's clearly he's going to get fired in 3 or 4 days.
Well, no, I'm not saying that. I think they are negotiating, from what I've read, on an extension. But I think it's hard because they don't want to give him a 5-year extension for $26 million, right?
So you don't expect Chip Kelly to get fired.
I don't know what to expect, but to me, everything I've kind of just read and heard, like, they did have a pretty good year relative to what they'd done before. Yeah. I think what they want to do is like kind of a fake extension. We're not going to sign yet for 6 more years, but how are we going to go hire a coach right now? It's January 11th.
And their leverage is like, we can fire you for nothing.
And he's like, okay. He's kind of, I think maybe probably calling their bluff a little bit. Like, who are you going to go hire? It's middle of January. The first signing day is gone. The second signing day is like 2 weeks away. And again, from everything I've kind of heard, like I do think Chip and the AD Martin Jarman seems like a positive relationship. But he didn't hire him.
I saw on the ESPN ticker, it's the highest ranked USC basketball has ever been.
Yeah. The Pac-12's got 3 teams in the top 6.
Andy
USC's unbeaten. Although USC's playing right now. What's the score of that game?
No clue. They play college basketball games at 3 o'clock in the afternoon?
2 o'clock, actually.
Why would you play a game that early?
It's a makeup game. They're up 1 at the half. So, anyway. All right. Thanks for hanging with us, everybody.
Right on.
We will be back with a live stream, YouTube only, on Wednesday. Keep an eye out for that. And then back with the pod on Thursday. Adios.
Adios.